Castro and his military knew of the plan to invade, and Castro's military quickly attacked back, killing and taking many for prisoner. After the Bay of Pigs in July 1962, the leader of the Soviets named Nikita Khrushchev and Castro made a deal. The Soviets placed missiles pointing towards the United States. On October 14, 1962, a United States U-2 aircraft took photos clearly showing sites for medium and intermediate range ballistic nuclear missiles under construction in Cuba. On October 22nd, 1962, JFK announces a naval blockade of Cuba. Resolution. After a grueling 13 days, Khrushchev, Castro, and JFK resolved the Cuban Missile Crisis. JFK offers to Khrushchev to end the blockade if missiles are removed from Cuba and agrees not to invade. December 24, 1962, those taken prisoner in the Bay of Pigs are released in exchange for food and medicine. Answering the research question, how did the Cuban Missile Crisis affect the relationship between Cuba and the USSR, along with the relationship between the United States and the USSR? So to begin, we'll look at the relationship between the USA and Cuba. There were restrictions placed on traveling to and from Cuba to America and vice versa. In 1980, the restrictions were lifted momentarily, in which 125 Cubans fled to the United States of America. More recently, in 2014, Obama and Raul Castro began to normalize relationships between Cuba and the United States of America. Let's look at the relationship between USSR and the USA. JFK was continuously more cautious about what the public knew about the USSR and USA relationship. June of 1963, a hotline was created between the White House and Kremlin in order to avoid more miscommunications. The USSR, Britain, and the United States of America signed a treaty banning nuclear testing underwater and in the atmosphere. Now we'll be looking at the relationship between the USSR and Cuba. In addition to the relationship between America and Cuba struggling, the relationship between Cuba and the Soviet Union too struggled, as Fidel Castro accused the Russians of backing down from the Americans, deserting the Cuban Revolution. Some interesting point that I found while researching this topic was in the book High Noon in the Cold War, Kennedy, Khrushchev, and the Cuban Missile Crisis, author Max Frankel states, Castro felt strongly, as Alexev had predicted, that harboring Soviet missiles would compromise his reputation for independence and tarnish his image in Latin America. He nonetheless readily accepted Khrushchev's plan. Tarnished or not, Fidel and his associates, were delighted to play a prominent part of the East-West struggle. I just found this point to be interesting because I feel like most people don't know that Castro was a little bit hesitant in the beginning, although he did end up going through with it. So that was just taking you guys through a little bit of what the Cuban Missile Crisis was, and I look forward to learning more about it. Thank you.